One of the projects we hadn't been able to dial in yet since getting to Flock 2 years ago is our compost. Presently, we've just been throwing our food, yard, and garden wastes in an amorphous heap outside one of our barns, which housed quite a few snakes and grew some amazing squash this past fall. But with our myriad garden projects, we have a nearly constant need for compost, so making a proper composter has been on our list of things to do. After analyzing some of the best composter designs on the internet, we settled on a 3-bay compost system that is 12 foot long, 4 foot wide, and 3 foot high. Then we decided to introduce some new snazzy features like live edge tops, milled from wood harvested on our land, and even a planter in the back. Sonder ended up designing the whole thing in his 3D program, which made it easier for him to get more precise measurements and cuts. This is how it's coming along.
All right, so right now I'm putting on the mesh that's gonna keep the compost in, but also provides airflow. So everything is measured out to be perfectly 4 feet because this rolls 4 feet, so it'd be easy to just strap it on here. This is gonna be the bottom. So if you can imagine, well, we'll lay it out. Let's see. Oh, this is going to be huge. This is one of the sides. What's nice now is that you have a perfectly square, like, internal structure to this compost, so you don't get any soil getting stuck behind this 2x4 here. So this is perfectly straight, so you can shovel it all out. And then what happens is I have 4 of these, and the middle ones, they have screen on both sides so that there's airflow between them. And then on top of this will be 2 supports, and then on top of that will be a sloped lid, 5-degree angle, and then back here will be a planter box. And then I still need to create these back panels, and that's what will keep this up. And yeah, once that's on, should be able to take it over there in pieces, screw this in, and then should be done. Okay, so the compost bin is coming together. I'm just working on making the individual pieces, and I want to build it in sections because then I can easily take it apart if I need to move it. So I have the platform here, which will sit on the ground or on some blocks, and it's basically some 2x4s and some hemlock that we had left over from our siding for the Meadow House. So, you know, you see here in the back, we have a ton of just random pieces of wood, and I'm just like picking from those to just put this all together. And, you know, some of this hemlock actually has like hemlock shake. So what happens is that, you know, the growth rings are separating, but what it does is it creates these really interesting pieces, like this, for example. And then I try to incorporate those here and there as well.
Yeah, that's a nice detail that you did.
Yeah, so then, for example, here on the corner, so these are the walls, still have to attach them. So I have 2 corner walls and 2 for in the middle. But then here on the edge, I just have this little, it's almost like velvet, the way this broke apart. It's really nice.
It's so cool because like when you have like hemlock shake, you typically would have to toss that board away.
Yeah.
And it actually, you're using it as a design element.
Yeah, usually it's scrap, but right now I'm using it as a, this is a design element because then it gives that nice look. So the way this works is like this board here on the front is a little longer. It sticks out, so it clicks in right here, and then it just sits on this. And then you see this groove here, and that's where one of those boards can go in. And it basically, you could stack all the boards in here to create sort of a wall, and then you can break it down individually.
Yeah, and you could build it up as the compost builds up.
Yeah, so as the compost, well, not really, because you got to keep it closed of critters.
Well, that's true.
But if you ever have to scoop all the compost out, you could do it by layers and not just remove the whole panel and then not being able to close it again. So, I mean, this design is nothing from unique. I'm just adding a lot of details to it that I personally enjoy, that take a lot of time. Well, this is the third day building this and designing it. So, but I'm learning a lot. I'm just trying a lot of new techniques on this. It's kind of an excuse to try a bunch of stuff. So yeah, these walls sit on the platform, the 4 feet bays here. And then what locks it all together is this big back panel here. So this basically is, if you look at the corner here, I overlap these and then glue them together, and that creates a really strong connection there, and it keeps everything square. Because what you'd see is we don't have a lot of diagonals here, and a diagonal will help like preventing it from like shearing, and this gives a lot of shear strength without having to have diagonals in the middle. So that seems to be working. And then what this will do is this sits on this edge, as you can see right there. And then this 2x4, let's see if it works without screws. See, it rests on there.
Yeah, nice.
I mean, it's almost standing on its own without screws. So everything kind of like leans on each other. That way, as there's more weight that goes on top, it fits together even better. Then I have this beam. And this beam, if you look at it, it's got a 5-degree slope on it on the top.
Yeah.
So what this will do, this will sit right here, 16 inches from the back. And then what we have now is we have a 5-degree slope from here, this point, to here. And
so water could just shear off.
Yeah, because like I've seen a lot of these designs that have a flat roof, and it makes things a lot easier to do flat. But then it's like water's just gonna puddle up on it. It's gonna sit on the top and destroy it. So the idea then is that the lid will go on like this, and it rests on the back there.
And why doesn't it go back all the way?
Well, it doesn't need to. It just needs to hold it on the edge.
What are we gonna put back there?
Yeah, so back there, now you have a space for, a little plant bed if you want.
Yeah, so we're thinking about putting it's gonna be north facing, so we'll just probably do some low light plants, maybe some Gaultheria procumbens or hostas.
Yeah.
And we could grow them right above the compost pile, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, because like this lid is 3x4 now, and a 4x4 lid would be pretty heavy. You can also see that we have this live edge detail. So as you may know, a lot of our ash trees are going, and we cut some big ash trees down and they were pretty straight. So I sent them to the sawmill and had them cut up. And I asked them to leave some of the live edge on that we could do projects with. So it's kind of cool now we're getting to use our ashes that are already dying into some kind of projects here on the land that will hopefully be kind of like here for a while. So yeah, you could just open the lid like this. And I still need to make a mechanism that keeps the lid open. But then the hinging mechanism, I don't think this will stay.
Yeah.
Like this. So the hinge we're using is going to be this piano hinge. And what that will do is it leaves this really nice black detail, this little edge here on the back, like that. And it will allow the lid to open and close quite gradually because the weight is so distributed over this whole thing. And I made a little sketch of like how the detail looks here. So this is the lid. This is what it's resting on. So you see that it's sitting on here on the edge. Mm-hmm. And then there will be a piece of trim that continues, and this will become the planting bed back here. And then this is that support beam, and then the hinge sits right here. Actually, the hinge sits slightly above the lid. Yeah, so then this can just open that way. And then that's kind of the detail that I'm going for. And then over here, I have this sticking out a little bit. And what I'm gonna do here on the bottom is I'm gonna just cut a little groove in here, like that.
Yeah.
And then if water goes like this, and water's kind of magnetic, it like travels on the bottom, it gets to that groove and it won't be able to go anywhere. It will just fall down.
Oh, that's really smart.
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to travel in here and
Yeah.
create all kinds of problems. And this is what they often do under windowsills, right? So that's a little detail there. I'm also going to stain and paint the end grains. So first stain it to let it penetrate into the wood, and then paint it to add another layer of protection because the stain fades away quite quickly. That will protect the end grain, because if there's any place in this wood where water's gonna easily get in, it's on the end grains. And another thing I did with these connections here, like this will also be painted and stained, but this will get a roof over it, so it won't be exposed. So then another thing I try to do here is hide the end grain. So because of this connection, a lot of the end grain is kind of covered and protected. So I'm trying to build this in a way where there's minimal end grain exposed to the elements and make it stronger at the same time.
And we're not gonna stain the entire project, right?
No, because it will just add like toxicity to the soil as it's decomposing.
Yeah, the compost, as
Yeah.
we just don't want that touching the compost. So we're gonna leave the wood raw for the most
and
part.
it looks quite nice to just have it kind of become gray over time. So what I have here is all these boards. These are all the boards that, I should spin it around. You should see all the screws that are in here. So all these screws are sticking out exactly 1/2 inch. And what that allows it to do is, you know, one side is actually planed, which gives a nice finish, and then the other side is nice and rough. And I'm also being aware of those kinds of details. So if you look on the back of this thing, it's all rough cut. But then like on the face of it, it's all nice and plain. So I'm keeping that detail in mind. But this basically slides right in here.
Oh, that's so slick.
In this gap.
Yeah.
And then it sits like this, and you'll have a little 1/2 inch space.
Nice.
So that the airflow can go through. Because you want a lot of air to travel through. And I also put mesh on both sides of these walls so that, you know, there's gonna be air coming in from the top and being able to move through this. So yeah, you could just keep stacking these boards like this. And as they're sitting here, they'll have a 1/2 inch space.
Oh, that's so clever.
And we have that nice detail here with the rough sawn wood. And underneath, it's perfectly flat, so that it helps like create a nice line. But yeah, all these boards, they have really interesting character, so I'm looking forward to see this thing age. And then as a design tip here, you're gonna have, these boards are 4.5 inch, plus the 1/2 inch is 5. So if you look at the back there, the bottom is also 5. So these are the same height, you see? Mm-hmm. So that will match. And then also, for the top, we're not gonna end exactly at an increment of 5. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut one more board that is 6 inches, and that will fit exactly to the top. And it actually looks quite nice to have the top board be a little thicker. And it also helps that if you're gonna scoop out the compost, you take the top board out, and you're already a lot further down, well, 2 inches, but like the idea is there that, you know, the top board can be longer, and then these you can incrementally take out. But yeah, you can see as I don't even have any nails or screws in this yet, and it's kind of just standing here as is.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's kind of how I like to build things. It's just
very clean.
Everything kind of supports each other.
It's like a puzzle piece.
Yeah, but now like as you look at this from the top, what's really cool is you see the rough sawn on the top, but then it's nice and planed on the front.
Yeah.
It's a really nice detail. I really enjoy that. It could have been done in a day by just throwing some pallets together, but I see this as an opportunity to also learn some new tricks, try to get these angles right, design it in 3D, see how I can transfer that into the real world. Yeah.
I also like how there's no lips on the inside of the board, so so the compost doesn't get stuck really on anything.
Yes, so one of the things that would really annoy me if I were working with the compost is if the compost gets behind like a corner and you can't get it out. So that's why the way I designed it is that you have all square 90-degree corners so that you can fit a square shovel in there without having to like peel things out of the corner all the time.
Yeah, and we wanted to also metal mesh on the ground because we don't want any rats to get in, right?
Yeah, rats or mice. And you know, there might be a chance that they'll fit through half an inch here.
Yeah.
But we'll deal with that once we have that problem. We can always, you know, you can always take those screws out or make them a 1/4 inch. And, you know, this will eventually decay because soil will be sitting up against this, but it's really easy to make more of this. And this will last a couple of years,
Oh,
5
more than
years,
that.
10 years,
Yeah.
who knows? So again, end grain, I'll stain and paint it. So as it's sitting in this groove, it's gonna be protected also from the rain and the weather. That's another detail here. So again, end grains, I'm trying to avoid having them exposed to the weather, and hopefully this will last a lot longer that way. But yeah, once the live edge roofs come up, and I have 2 more of these, and I built it in a way where the exposed live edge is continuous. So it will be continuous throughout the whole thing, and they kind of match each other. So.
Well, this looks really huge, but
It's
I
big,
know
yeah.
given the amount of compost and grass clippings and
I mean, we'll
horse
definitely,
poo,
you know,
we'll fill it up.
It's rather, you gotta have more space. And from what I understand is that you start in this bin first, and then as you want to turn it over, you could scoop it into the next bin.
Right.
And then you can kind of keep transferring it. So this first stop is here, and then as it decomposes, you can turn it, add more layers or other stuff. And then it ends up in here, and then you flip it over once more, and then it ends up in here. And then you should have like nice and dry soil by that time.
Yeah. Well,
Another interesting thing is that the way we're placing this is that the south will be there, the west will be there. I guess they'll get equal sunlight, but yeah, the sun can really help dry out the end bay and the first bay as well, because it's all open and the mesh and everything. So.
Well,
Yeah.
we're excited because we haven't really been able to get our compost game on very much because we've just been doing like compost in a heap and it's an amorphous blob, and sometimes it gets too wet. Sometimes we throw too much grass clippings. This gives us a more regimented opportunity.
Yeah, just having a pile on the ground doesn't really work. It just creates a mount, and snakes and rats and mice just live in there, and all the seeds start to sprout in the grass.
Yeah.
You can't get them out, like they'll turn into weeds. So yeah, what I'm doing now is I'm reinforcing some of this mesh because I used a staple nail gun or a staple gun, crown stapler, but I want to make sure that these are really, you know, that this mesh is going to be under a lot of pressure. So I want to make sure it's really tight. So I'm just using a normal stapler together with those crown staples to really hold this down. And yeah, once that's done, I'm going to start attaching it, figure out this stuff, and then I'm going to place all the trim. So as you can see, this is another corner piece. You know, it's not that great to look at this. So I'm gonna put a piece of trim here that's 1/2 inch thick and just run that. That's 2.5 inches wide. And it's gonna just cover everything here. And another thing that it's gonna do is gonna make all the sides an equal width. Mm-hmm. So when you look at it, it's gonna feel like it's the same thickness of beam going across. And what it will also do is it will hide all this stuff. So as this sits here, so here we go, this fits here. Now you could see, you know, this is kind of exposed.
Yeah.
But once you put a piece of trim there that lines up with this 2.5 inch, it's gonna just be flush not completely flush with the ground because you don't want to touch in the ground, but it's going to hover just above it, aligned with that and this. And I have to say, it's really amazing to be able to use this computer program to put this together, because I have not made one mistake in length, cutting, and everything has just been fitting together, which hasn't been the case for the kitchen. Yeah, but look at that. That's really cool.
This is great, Sander. I mean, bravo. Look at, this is the most posh composter I've ever.
Right, but we'll have this for a while.
Oh, we better.
I just like looking at this and knowing that like it's put together the way I wanted it to be put together, and take the time to really, it's not a huge time commitment. What am I spending? 3 days total to put this all together? So
it's a long weekend.
It's a long weekend project, basically. But once it's done, it's going to be a cool composting bin.
Well, looking forward to the final results.
Hopefully just as functional. And yeah, let us know if there's any ideas that you have too in the comments on how to potentially improve this, or, make it better. So that way we can alter the design in the future or something like that. And yeah, that's how it's going.
We'll be installing this up top near the common house when the weather improves. In the meantime, if you have any other recommendations or features you'd include in a composter design, let us know in the comments below. We'll see you in the next video.